Today we're going to answer the question, what are the advantages or the benefits of avoiding conflict resolution? And the answer to that is the benefits are zero. Zero. If the two of you, talking to the neurodiverse couples now, are not willing to or able to work on conflict resolution, problem solving in the marriage is what we're talking about here, then the team spirit is lost. I'm guessing that in the early going of the relationship, the two of you were somewhat bonding. There was some empathy, social, emotional reciprocity, and so on. The two of you probably had trust. The two of you bonded. The two of you viewed yourself as a team. Without conflict resolution over the years, which is going to happen, there's going to be conflict. You have to resolve it. Without conflict resolution, that team playing spirit is gone. Without conflict resolution, usually the NT wife is going to suffer mentally, sometimes physically, depending on how many years it goes by, because she has been trying to work on the problems and she's probably getting nowhere. The problems are piling up in the closet. And the more they pile up, the more each new problem feels very heavy. So in the early going, if there was only 50 problems and now there's 500 problems, we're getting a cumulative effect. And that straw has broke the camel's back a long time ago. Without conflict resolution, resentment builds. Resentment is like quicksand. The further you move forward, the deeper you go. And when the quicksand is up to here, and the resentment is up to here, that's usually when the couple gets divorced. Without conflict resolution, there is increased bitterness, arguments, control freak type behavior, more shutdowns and meltdowns from your ASD spouse. And eventually, the NT spouse becomes the ASD spouse's number one source of anxiety. And now problem solving is virtually impossible. And so, as the problems pile up in the closet there, pretty much both parties feel like the relationship is no longer safe. Trust is shattered. That original bond when you first were together is broken. Hope is non-existent. So, the answer to the question, what are the benefits of avoiding conflict resolution? Zero. And it's not even a neutral thing. Avoiding conflict resolution makes a bad problem worse. So the question becomes, what can we do? Well, it's not so important the frequency of arguments. It's not so important the intensity of each argument. What is important, though, is when they come up, view it as part of the program, especially if you have the NT wife and the ASD husband. They're wired almost 180 degrees opposite. There's going to be a lot of conflict there. So you have to become an expert at understanding one another's triggers, understanding one another's belief systems, understanding one another's thinking, feeling, motives, and so on. So what we have to do with conflict resolution in this most complicated relationship, the neurodiverse relationship, a ton of grace and mercy and compassion. He's not doing anything wrong. I'm not saying he can't be an asshole. He can. But the other 80% of the time, these traits are not narcissism or selfishness. She's not doing anything wrong. She's wired to have a lot of social and emotional attention, and she's not getting it. So you can see why we have this dilemma. Grace and mercy and compassion. What is grace? I'm going to do something for my spouse that they probably don't deserve, but I'm going to take the high road and do it anyway. What is mercy? I'm going to avoid trying to punish my spouse, even though they probably do deserve it. What's compassion? I'm going to realize that we are wired completely opposite. And we are in a position with this relationship where conflict is not only likely, it's inevitable. And we should not be ashamed of the fact that we disagree a lot. So, the benefits to conflict resolution, avoidance, big fat zero. So in this video, we're going to look at the ASD husband's side of things. We're going to try to decode this crushing feeling that he gets when she tries to be helpful. So let's cross the bridge into the husband's world. To get why her helpful reminders can feel like a hailstorm of criticism, we have to look at the neurology underneath it all. And this isn't about him being too sensitive or difficult or whatever. It's about his brain's operating system. So let's call the wife's reminders and suggestions pings, P-I-N-G-S. To her, each ping is a small single piece of information. Take out the trash. Did you make that call? You should wear the blue shirt. Her heart's in the right place. I mean, I'm not faulting her, but to an autistic brain, these are not small isolated pings. They're piling up. There's this cumulative effect going on. They're interruptions to him, and each one carries a hidden and, quite honestly, a very devastating cost. So let's break down what happens inside the ASD husband's head. First, there's a concept called rejection sensitive dysphoria, or RSD. Now, while it's not an official diagnosis, RSD is widely recognized as an extreme emotional sensitivity to perceived criticism or rejection, and again, you've probably lived it. It's very common in people with ADHD and ASD. So RSD isn't just feeling a little bummed out by criticism. It's an intense, overwhelming, and physically painful experience. Your simple suggestion might not sound like a suggestion at all to him. It can trigger a full-blown shame spiral, and then DNT wife is going to be on the receiving end of a meltdown or a shutdown or just a full-blown adult temper tantrum. Your ASD spouse's inner critic is probably already on a 24/7 shift, providing a constant, brutal monologue about his own flaws. Her helpful comment just serves as outside proof for that inner voice. It's the final piece of evidence that confirms his deepest fear that he is fundamentally broken, incompetent, and a disappointment. What she means as a gentle nudge, hey, don't forget the trash, can be processed by his RSD wired brain as, you're the kind of failure who can't remember one simple thing. You're unreliable. Now, this isn't a rational thought, but it's a deep and immediate emotional wound that the NT wife had no idea was going to occur. The defensiveness and shutdowns that you see in him is a shield against that unbearable pain of feeling like a failure. Next, we're going to have to talk about executive function. These are the mental skills that help us get stuff done, right? Planning, organizing, starting tasks, short-term memory, and so on. Most autistic people face major challenges with executive function. He might genuinely struggle to remember a list of instructions to switch from one task to another, or to get started on something he doesn't find interesting, even if he wants to do it. Now, think about the wife's pings in that context. Every single verbal reminder is an interruption that forces his brain to stop, switch focus, process her request, and then try to get back to what he was doing. This task switching has a high cognitive price. For a brain that might already be running on a tight budget of executive function energy, these constant interruptions are completely draining. Now, imagine you're writing a complex email, and about every 90 seconds or so, someone taps you on the shoulder to ask you a random question. You'd get nothing done, and you'd end up frazzled and furious. That's his daily reality. Her reminder, meant to help him remember, can actually make it harder for him to function. It adds to the mental clutter. He might already have a system in his head for remembering trash. Maybe he'll do it right after he finishes his current thought, but her ping shatters his internal plan and replaces it with anxiety and the feeling of being micromanaged. Next, we got to talk about the critical need for autonomy. You, the neurotypical wife, have probably realized that your husband is a solo player who just happens to be married. For most autistic people, having a sense of control over their actions and environment isn't just a preference, it's a core need for feeling regulated and safe and sane. To the autistic brain, the world feels like a chaotic, unpredictable mess. So creating internal structure is not only a key to survival, it's a key to sanity. So when his neurotypical wife constantly jumps in with her suggestions, it can feel like a direct attack on his autonomy. He might have a very specific, logical way of doing something, logical according to him. Her idea to do it better isn't just an alternative. It's a disruption of a system he built to manage the world. It implies his way is wrong. It steamrolls his sense of agency. The feeling of being controlled isn't him being dramatic. It's the genuine neurological experience of having his own self-regulation system hijacked. And this can lead to what's known as demand avoidance, where even simple tasks become incredibly stressful because they feel like a demand that's stealing his control. Finally, there's sensory and cognitive overload. An autistic brain often takes in way more sensory information than a neurotypical brain and struggles to filter it. At any moment, he might be actively managing the hum of the refrigerator, the tag on his shirt, the bright lights, and thoughts from a conversation hours ago. His brain is often running at 90% capacity just to exist. And her verbal ping isn't just a sound. It's another piece of data he has to process on an already full hard drive. If he's focused on something, he might be in a state of monotropism, using all of his available processing power for that one thing. And her interruption isn't just his distraction. It can feel like a total system crash. His silence isn't him ignoring you. It's his brain desperately trying to allocate resources to your requests without losing everything else. And the shutdown that sometimes follows is basically a computer's blue screen of death. The system is overloaded and has to reboot. So when he says her help feels crushing, he means it. It's the weight of perceived rejection, the drain of task switching, the violation of his autonomy, and the final straw on his sensory capacity. He's not rejecting her. He's trying to survive the unintended impact of her communication. For some reason, I'm big on numerical values because you're dealing with somebody who's highly logical and has very low in emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. So they can kind of deal with facts, figures, and numbers. But all conversations are not of equal weight. All of them may be equal in the sense they present anxiety, but all of them are not heavy topics. So let's come up with a scale, Lori, of 1 to 5. 1 is we need to talk, but this is pretty lightweight. So if you want to stress about it, go ahead, but it's there. You don't need to be on alert. 5 is, I just want to let you know we do need to talk about this, and it's kind of a high-risk conversation. 2.5 is somewhere in the middle. I know this is terribly hypothetical. So the point of this is he may, at this point, Lori, he may think that any conversation is going to be a 5. Because if he's viewing every conversation as an argument, with which some conversations are just a conversation. We're not arguing about anything, but if he goes in, before you get 2 words out of your mouth, he's already thinking, oh boy, here we go again. Give him a numerical value before you dive into the conversation. 1s and 2s, you can say this is pretty lightweight, we can handle it. And then, but you're also advising, in your good estimation, when it's risky. This is a big deal. And we kind of need to be on alert for when one of us is triggered. And then if somebody's brain is cracked in the moment, we'll just put a pause on it and we'll come back to it. But the idea here is to be able to start the conversation, maintain it through its course, and then end it. So you may have to break up a 30 or 45-minute conversation into 5-minute bite-sized chunks. He views questions as interrogation. We're back to the same thing again. Well, we have conversations, but he views them as arguments. Yeah. They're always arguments. Okay. And then Lori's going, well, I just asked questions, but he didn't say this, but he's downloading it as being interrogated, raises his anxiety. He may not say that. Or he's also viewing it as annoying. I shouldn't even be having to answer these questions. The fewer explanations coming from you and the fewer questions, the better. Because questions, well, how come you did this? Or what were you thinking when you did it? Or what was up with your decision to da 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 da? I think anytime there's questions and anytime you try to explain, unless he asks for an explanation, that's fine. And I say the same thing to them. I say, as soon as you start explaining yourself, your NT is going to download that as you being defensive. Two-way street. So anytime you're asking questions, especially multiple questions, just know he's going to feel interrogated and annoyed and want to shut it down. Alternative would be to text him. I have some questions about, I know it sounds ridiculous. I have some questions, but I'm not going to, bother you with it right now. I sent you a text and you can look through them. So now you've kind of removed yourself from the equation, and now he doesn't have to answer 3 or 4 or 5 questions in one sitting. He can kind of look through, and then maybe he can probably combine the questions into one answer. The other thing I say to the guys is when she's questioning, she's not interrogating. She's wanting to be in the loop. She's wanting to tie up some loose ends and get all the information because it helps her feel safe. So I frame it in the lens of it's a safety issue. If there's a lot of unknowns, well, even though it may operate at an unconscious level, if there's a lot of unknowns, it kind of makes me a little insecure. And I know it's some NT wives in here were thinking, man, I have to make so many accommodations. I have to treat him like a child. I have to baby step my way forward. Well, it's either that or the shutdown. It's not like there's a third choice. If his usual method of operation is to feel, well, there I go, I disappointed her again. Doesn't matter what I say or do, it's never good enough. Doesn't matter how hard I try, never can meet her quickly. All the guys have, all your husbands have low self-esteem. That's why they download your neutral comments as criticism. So if that's his style, you can follow up with your message delivery over the issue in question with, just to let you know, I'm not disappointed with or upset. I just want to resolve the thing in question. It has nothing to do with disappointment or upsetness. It has to do with wanting to resolve the thing. Once the shutdown has occurred, the bullet's already left the gun, and intervention strategies suck. They not only don't work, they often make a bad problem worse. But we have to think in terms of prevention, because once the shutdown has happened, the bullet's left the gun. The only option then is to go around 100 yards, 200 yards, 3 miles down the road and try to find the bullet and put it back in the barrel. Why waste time and energy on that? That storm is just going to have to ride itself out. There's nothing you can do once he's shut down. That cortisol and adrenaline rush inside of him is going to take a long time, sometimes several days, to dissipate. It's most often the case that he collects himself and de-escalates only by being alone, pretty much 100% of the time. And then, so he leaves, and then the NT wife justifiably goes, well, he doesn't even care. He doesn't want to resolve it. No, that's his first attempt at resolving. She wants to connect during time of crisis. Mm-hmm. He wants to disconnect during time of crisis. That's one hell of a dilemma, because sometimes he retracts, she follows. I don't necessarily mean in the moment following him around the house, but he retracts, she follows, and finally, she gets tired of following and the heck with it, I'm burned out. And we'll just throw this current problem in the closet with the other 572 problems, and we're running out of closet space. So she gets to the point where I'm tired of pursuing. And the more she pursues, the more his anxiety comes up. And so we have to stop that game. Socializing is a battery drainer for him. Socializing for you is a battery charger. We'll use a simple example to wrap your brain around. Thanksgiving, 3-hour deal over there at the family's house. After 3 hours of being with family, most NT females, their battery's all charged up. I got to see everybody. I haven't seen these cousins for a year. And I didn't see this other person for 3 years. And we're getting caught up on one another's children and what we're doing. And her battery's getting charged up. At about the 90-minute mark, sometimes 45-minute mark, his battery's dead. Hey, this is Mark Hutton. Would you like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom call? Okay, it's so simple. Just look under any of my videos in the description area. Click on this Calendly link. Now you see my calendar. Pick your month, your day, anytime that's available. Enter your name and email address. Then you'll get a follow-up email with the Zoom link on the day and time that you picked. And voila, we will talk.